there was a bizarre narrative yesterday that maybe Zion goes back to Duke. I mean, I was seeing that. I know there was some stuff on ESPN about it, and it was all over social media. I mean, that's insane. I mean, Zion, first of all, to familiarize, I mean, I'm sure you know some of this, but like guys, you don't lose a player's rights if you draft him and he decides not to play for you. So if Zion stays in the draft, gets drafted by the Pelicans, he's a Pelican for life unless they trade him. He can go back to Duke, but that seems just bonkers given that injuries or whatever can change the course of his life. Plus, he has no idea who's going to draft him next year if he stays in the draft. It could be New Orleans again for all he knows with next year's lottery. So that's kind of what people are talking about. And you're already seeing today, like, some reports about Zion having a positive meeting with the Pelicans. They're going to take him, and then I think people are sort of talking about where the dust settles after that. Ja Morant is pretty solidified as the number 2 pick to Memphis. I think R.J. Barrett is pretty solidified as number 3 to New York. And after that, I think it's chaos because you're going to see some trades. You're going to see some teams that aren't overwhelmed by the talent that exists in 3 to 10, and that's where I think things are starting to heat up.
Yeah, I mean, with the Zion stuff, I was saying yesterday, and I'm sure I'll repeat it again here on the show today, and the way of me telling you here, is that have we read into the mind of a young man with our own thoughts or conjecture and rumor more than with Zion? I mean, when his shoe exploded, we were all saying, of course he's thinking about not playing at Duke anymore. He's got to protect himself for the draft lottery. And, of course, he came back and he played in the NCAA tournament. Now we're sitting here thinking, of course he doesn't want to go to New Orleans. And he's going to try and figure out a game, a way to be, like Eli Manning or John Elway, and to use the NFL analogies of somebody saying, I don't want to go play for that team. Maybe he's just a young kid who's just excited to play basketball, and he's ready to go to the NBA. And, obviously the question is, what does New Orleans do here, Chris?
Well, I mean, I agree with you that he's a guy that just wants to play basketball. I mean, plus he's a kid from the South too, so playing in New Orleans, I don't think is unappealing to him. And I love the people that are, if the Knicks got the number 1 pick, the first thing the Knicks would do would be try to trade him to New Orleans. So he might wind up in New Orleans anyway, because of the Anthony Davis aspect of all this. The Pelicans, Rich, they're going to draft him. And then they're going to let the chips fall where they may. I don't think that, and I talked to David Griffin about this the other night, the public stance remains, we're going to try to convince Anthony Davis to stay. Privately, they know Davis doesn't want to be there. He's not going to sign an extension, and it's too big a risk to keep him on the roster all season long if you don't have an extension in place. You just can get too much value back in return. But what the draft now does and the lottery does, it slows the timetable down. Like, they can take their time. They can draft Zion, go into July, wait till free agency dust settles, and then decide where to flip Anthony Davis. I don't think it goes beyond the summer because I think his value decreases and the increase of injury is still there with Davis. But I think this is the kind of deal that unless they get overwhelmed by something, you're going to be in mid-July, maybe late July, with Anthony Davis still on the Pelicans. So what this does is give David Griffin a little bit of breathing room to make the Zion draft pick and to figure out what he wants to do with AD.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.